Disturbed by the negative implications of the 7-day sit-at-home directive by the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB for the Anambra governorship election, the state and the Southeast Zone and Nigeria, OHANAEZE Indigbo have begged the separatist group to reconsider the stand. Last week, the IPOB vowed to observe a 7-day lockdown from November 5th in support of its detained leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, unless he is released by the federal government on or before November 4th. Noting that Anambra is the economic life wire of the Southeast, OHANAEZE Indigbo said, any harm to the state will create untold disastrous chain reaction and catastrophe for the Igbo. The Apex group spoke as first cousin of Mazi Nnamdi. Mr. Chinudu Afo raised fresh concern over the IPOB leader's health and pleaded with the federal government to grant him access to his personal physicians for thorough medical attention. In a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Chief Chidioze Alex Ogbonanya, OHANAEZE urged the chairman, Southeast Governors Forum, and the governor of Ebonyi State, Engineer Dave Umahi, to convene an emergency meeting of Igbo stakeholders and youth leaders for the purpose of addressing the legitimacy crisis in the zone, especially as it relates to Anambra state election and the political solution for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. The statement reads, the OHANAEZE Indigbo worldwide pleads with the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB to reconsider the 7-day sit-at-home order in the southeast of Nigeria from November 5th to November 11th. This is to enable the governorship election for Anambra State scheduled for November 6th to hold. It is important to note that Anambra State is the economic life wire of the southeast with an impressive steady growth trajectory. For instance, Anambra State showcases the best rural road network and rural community development in the southeast, if not in the entire Nigeria. Anambra is home to the greatest number of small and medium large-scale industries in the southeast. Most recently, Anambra has added a cargo airport to its resource base. Above all, Onitsha is the largest market in West Africa. The implication of the above illustration is that Anambra State is the melting point of Igbo traders and artisans. It stands to reason that Anambra is the big Iroko tree that provides a shade for most Igbos. Apart from the shade, it also hosts the numerous birds that perch on the branches. Therefore, any harm to the Iroko tree will create untold disastrous chain reaction and catastrophe for the Igbo. While pleading with the IPOB to rescind the lockdown plan, OHANAEZE Indigbo requests the chairman, Southeast Governors Forum, and the governor of Ebonyi State, Engineer Dave Umahi, to convene an emergency meeting of Igbo stakeholders and the youth leaders for the purpose of addressing the legitimacy crisis in the southeast, especially as it relates to the Anambra state election and the political solution for the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. It is important to point out one of the causes of the crisis of confidence in the southeast is because of the yawning gap between the youth and indeed the masses on one side and the political leaders on the other. Therefore, the leadership of the various youth groups should not be excluded in any meeting aimed at resolving the current crisis in Igbo land. In other words, the youth want to be fully convinced of our commitment to their plight. OHANAEZE Indigbo reiterates its solidarity with any group that protects the Igbo alienation in the project Nigeria with a caution for restraint, maturity, and wisdom. It is based on the foregoing that OHANAEZE adopts the philosophy of dialogue, negotiations, in coalition with other concerned groups that comprises the Southern and the Middle Belt Leadership Forum led by Chief Edwin Clark. It is also lamentable that the burial ceremony of the Afara Oku-born chief, Mrs. Victoria Aguiyi Ironsi, slated for November 5th in Umuahia, Abia State, may be drastically affected by the prevailing Igbo social climate. General J.T.U. Uguayi Ironsi represents so many things to the Igbo, and we owe his soul a duty. OHANAEZE Indigbo urges the governor of Anambra State, Chief Willie Obiano, to convene a joint meeting of the Anambra State chapter of OHANAEZE Indigbo led by Chief Emeka Udodeme and the Association of Towns Union led by Barrister Titus Akpodu with a view to activating meetings in all the 181 towns of Anambra State. The traditional rulers, archbishops, bishop, and the clergy are also requested to brace up in their roles as cultural and spiritual leaders of society. Ambassador Professor George Obiozo, the President General for OHANAEZE Indigbo worldwide, is very perturbed that the serenity, tranquility, and aggressive entrepreneurship for which the Igbo are known are gradually yielding to the unknown dark forces. He is more perturbed when the Anambra ordeal is juxtaposed with the caliber of personage for which the state is known. Some of them include Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Dim Chukwuemeka Odumegu Ojukwu, Dr. Alex Ekwueme, Professor Chino Achebe, Dr. Chukwuemeka Eziefe, Professor Chike Obi, Chief Emeka Anyoku, Cardinal Francis Arienze, Professor Dora Akinyuli, Dr. Chuba Okadigbo, Dr. Nwafo Orizu, Professor Kenneth D.K. Peter Obi, Professor A.B.C. Unwonsu, Engineer Arthur Eze, Dr. Chris Ngige Igwe, Alfred Achibe, and so on, and numerous young and old billionaires. In many respects, Anambra is the engine that propels the Igbo enterprise. As elders, we should not fold our arms while the goat dies in the teether. OHANAEZE Indigbo is of the conviction that the disruption of the Anambra state election and its adverse consequences are a major setback to the Igbo civilization. Meanwhile, fresh concerns over Kanu's health arises. Ofo, who made a plea in a media chat, said he was seriously worried over the health status of Nnamdi Kanu, which he noted was very obvious during his last court appearance, and said he needed urgent medical examination and care by his personal doctor who have his medical history. He said that the Department of State Services, DSS, where the IPOB leader is currently detained, lacks the needed facility to handle his health challenges. Hence, the compelling need to allow him access his private doctors to properly take care of him. Kanu's cousin warned that the IPOB leader's medical condition could worsen if not properly managed by experts. A sad development, he said, could even result to his death. He said that Kanu's death in custody will serve Nigeria no good but worsen matters for the country, as the aftermath of such tragedy will be too enormous to handle. He therefore urged the federal government to heed the appeals from various quarters to engage Nnamdi Kanu in dialogue with a view to resolving the case of the growing agitation for self-determination. According to him, only dialogue and meaningful engagement of the necessary stakeholders will resolve the various agitations for self-determination in the country. Ofo urged leaders of the country to stop pretending and convene a roundtable discussion where the various genuine national questions will be frankly addressed to save Nigeria from the precipice. He said that the intimidation and use of brute force by government could not quell the growing agitation for self-determination by different regions in the country, which he said was as a result of the general disenchantment in the land. According to him, the earlier the government listens to the voice of the masses, the better for the country. Otherwise, the country will only be postponing the doomsday.